Thank you so much, Yasmin. And for our final act, we have Anders Fogh Rasmussen, the former Prime Minister, who is going to make a presentation. Anders, I only remind you, you are all that stands between the crowd and dinner. So if you can stay on schedule.
In his excellent introduction of this afternoon, Bernard-Henri Lévy revealed who killed Miss Truth. It might well be that she's been dead for quite some time. However, I think it's only a brain death, so I consider my role as the one who will contribute at least to a revival of the dead, and maybe also to vaccinate and galvanize people so that future truths will not be, or to minimize the risk that future truths will be killed. And today I want to speak not as a tech expert, but as a citizen who believes passionately that freedom and democracy are worth fighting for. In that context, technology can be a force for good. It has brought people and their elected representatives closer. It has empowered anyone with a smartphone to become a citizen journalist. But technology can also be part of the problem and used by malign actors to hack our public discourse and undermine our democratic processes. This is not new. Propaganda as a term is almost 400 years old, and misinformation was widely used during the Cold War to undermine public trust. Yet, the key difference in today's era is the high speed and low cost of sowing misinformation. The rise of social media platforms and freely available news have removed the filters of the past, particularly the mainstream media. And those seeking to sow chaos and disunity now have direct access to our handsets and our heads. Advances in artificial intelligence and machine learning make it far easier to invent or twist a story and to make it credible by sheer volume of repetition. In short, interfering has become faster, easier, and significantly cheaper. Russia has understood this fact for several years. We also see growing evidence of other malign states, such as Iran, China, and Venezuela, catching on as well. And the interference playbook is not just spreading, it is also getting smarter. Take deep fake videos as an example of the next frontier in artificial intelligence-enabled interference. The company ASI will show us how a teenager in his or her bedroom will soon have the power to make politicians say anything on command. Videos can be posted on YouTube of President Trump declaring nuclear war, President Macron resigning from office, or even Theresa May dancing, although I suspect the deep fake will be more convincing. Seriously, such technology will destroy public trust in our democratic institutions unless we take concerted action. Today, across the democratic world, our response to this challenge has been wholly inadequate. There is little collaboration across the Atlantic. In the US, the issue of interference remains deeply partisan. Indeed, There is not even general agreement on how serious the problem is. And finally, there is a gulf between the tech community and policymakers. The two sides talk past each other and speak different languages. That is why, too often, we see politicians responding to the challenge with overzealous regulation, and why tech companies fall short of owning up to their responsibilities. And this must change. That's why I established a Transatlantic Commission on Election Integrity. Together with former US Secretary of Homeland Security Michael Chertoff as a co-chair, we have brought together political, media, business and tech leaders from both sides of the Atlantic. Our aim is to close the gaps, sound the alarm, and find new solutions. Between now and 2020, there will be over 20 elections across the Western world, including here in Ukraine. We see our role to highlight good work being done and to join together people, governments, and NGOs working to protect our elections. After all, transatlantic cooperation has solved major challenges in the past, and I'm confident it can solve this challenge as well. And we have already started our work. We have started to break down some of the partisan barriers. Earlier this summer, working with the Atlantic Council, we convened the first meeting between parliamentarians from across the Atlantic and a bipartisan group of US senators to discuss the challenge and adopt a series of recommendations. And we will continue to support such transatlantic dialogue. But the Transatlantic Commission is not just about top-level policy and advocacy effort. It is also about being on the ground and making a real difference in preventing the next wave of interference. And here technology plays a very special role. For example, working with another technology firm, we have been monitoring the social media discourse about the killing of Mr. Sakharchenko, the so-called separatist leader in Donetsk. The findings are alarming. On some social media platforms, almost a third of the conversation is controlled by accounts set up for the sole purpose of propaganda. Based on our assessment in Ukraine, the social media conversation is the most artificially influenced that we have seen, actually 50% higher than we have observed in other countries we have monitored, such as Sweden, Italy, or Mexico. The Commission is also working with ASI to develop some tools to prepare and respond to the new frontier in propaganda, deep fakes. And earlier today we announced, alongside the Atlantic Council and the Viktor Pinchuk Foundation, a Ukraine elections task force to specifically monitor interference in next year's pivotal presidential elections. We will play our role in bridging these divides and developing practical solutions. However, the strongest inoculation to prepare against interference is citizen awareness. Awareness of the need to check facts and to be critical of what they see. Because ultimately, if the playing field is fair, voters are intelligent and sophisticated people who will make the right decisions. That is why I hope that all of you here will join with us in highlighting this challenge and working to develop solutions. The task will not be easy, but we cannot afford to fail. Thank you.